Hey guys, King of Charmanders here, and today I bring to you a video on the #1 ranked weapons, armor, and monsters. We're going to take a look at the year 1 versus the second year meta. So, the first and the second year, we're going to compare them as it analyzes the top weapons, armor, and monsters from year 1 and year 2. And this data will show us how the meta has evolved over the year, or has stayed consistent. This is a direct counter to misinformation, as long-term data is a good measuring stick for a majority of what the most efficient / strongest weapons and builds are in the game. In other words, if you don't know about this data, if you don't do a lot of homework, then a lot of people spread things like this is great, when they actually don't do a lot of data analysis, or don't do your homework, basically. You know, when you go to college, get a degree, you need resources. You don't do resources in study, or if you are practicing something like a martial art or something like that. Like me as a purple belt in jiu-jitsu, I spend many years so that I can get my purple belt. But yeah, so for those builds, for those practice, we're going to take a look at the year 1 and the second year of Monster Hunter now. Alright, first we're going to start off with the most used weapons for year 2 versus year 1. At number 5, we have the Magnum Malo Gun Lance versus the Puke Bow. At number 4, you have the Black Diablos Bow versus the Kulu Longsword. At number 3, you have the Rajang Heavy Bowgun versus the Black Diablos Bow. Now at number 2, you have the Devil Joe Gun Lance versus the Puke Sword and Shield. And at number 1, you have the Great Jagras Sword and Shield versus the Bone Gun Lance. And this brings us to the analysis for the most used weapons. So number 5, Magnum Malo Gun Lance is actually good. With charged shelling plus blast element with Worm Stake Shot, it's a very powerful gun lance. However, on the other side, for year 1, you had the Puke Bow. And the thing is, the Puke Bow is still the best budget weapon in the game. Puke spawns in, I believe, 3 of the 4, if not all 4, from what I remember. And that allows you to be able to build Puke Bow, especially when style customization comes out, is going to be absolutely incredible. Well, maybe, but we'll see. But Poison Bow is actually, again, the best budget weapon in the game, so both have a place. Magnum Malo's absolutely harder to get, so yeah. This brings us to number 4, where Black Diablos is the best raw weapon in the game. Overall best weapon in the game. Like, if we take away the fact of difficulty, etc., it's a subspecies. It only requires Wyvern Gem Shards compared to the Fulgur Plate like we do for Fulgur Anjanath. It's the best weapon. Where at year 1, Kulu Longsword is okay, but there are better options now, so don't build a Kulu Longsword. At number 3, the Rajang Heavy Bowgun for Thumbreed Monsters, and for year 2, they had a lot of them. And of course, we have to talk about the Black Diablos Bow, which is absolutely the strongest, most powerful thing in the game, and the only subspecies weapon on this list for good reason, because, again, we take everything in consideration, it's the best weapon in the game. And this brings us to the top 2. At number 2, the Devil Joe Gun Lance. Great for artillery +1 weapon skill, and the Puke Sword and Shield. It's still the best budget melee weapon for early game. If you're early in the story, and if you're going up to heck, I would even say 8 stars and whatnot, Puke is actually not that bad. Or Sword and Shield, especially since it's the beginner's weapon. But of course, the reason why it's in number 2 for year 1 was because of that. Budget was important. However, for number 2, what happened was the Gun Lances came into supremacy for year 2, and that's why for Joe Gun Lance, charged Gun Lance style, as lazy as it is, I approve of the Devil Joe Gun Lance because it does take a respectable amount of effort to make. Especially if you have Riftborn coming up, so yeah, the Riftborn Joe is going to be powerful. And at number 1, we have the Bone Gun Lance. Yes, I dislike this. The fact of the matter is it is efficient, it was cheap as heck, lazy as heck, and probably it made you mad along with me because of all the Elder Dragon interceptions where they literally wiped, or we had to carry them. I carried a lot of them, and it was the cheapest at the time. But again, I can't front efficiency and whatnot. And they should have better weapons now unless they're lazy and still just using the same thing. I find that if you use the Bone Gun Lance, you're probably not too inclined to go too up just because it works so well. But again, that's not everyone. And the Jagras Sword and Shield. So it's still useful for water weak monsters early game. That's why it was number 1 for year 1. I still kind of marveled at this because I'm like, why the Jagras Sword and Shield? Cheap water monsters to kill with. It does have a place, but again, it's outdated. You probably shouldn't want to use it now. And this brings us to the cream of the crop, the pros of the pros, the grade 10s of grade 10s. If you put in the effort, you should have a lot of these by now. I don't know why a lot of other content creators don't have a lot of these right now. Maybe it's because they don't actually grind as hard. But if you do grind and you know to grind, grade 10 or maxing out, these are the weapons you should have gone after. The most upgraded to grade 10, year 2 versus year 1. At number 5, you had the Zinogre light bowgun, actually for both years. So for both years, Zinogre, actually LBG took number 5. At number 4, you have the Zinogre longsword versus the Rathalos light bowgun. Number 3, the Bone gun lance versus the Puke bow. At number 2, the Black Diablos bow versus the Zinogre longsword. And number 1, what everyone built, we have the Devil Joe gun lance for year 2, and for year 1, we have the Black Diablos bow. And this brings us to the most upgraded to grade 10 year 2 versus year 1 analysis. Alright, so number 5, of course, Zinogre light bowgun's gonna take the cake. It's the it's not, well, it's in the top. Honestly, the top 3 outside of, like, I would say Corinne, it's the most accessible Thunder light bowgun in the game. Yes, you have Rajang, but the thing about it is, this plus Artful Dodger is still amazing. You don't have the negative affinity to deal with it. It was actually my second max grade 10 weapon, so I maxed out. My second weapon was actually Despot's Wildfire, which is the Zinogre light bowgun, and there were a ton of Thunder events for year 2 again, so no surprise here. But that just shows you how good Zinogre is for Thunder. And at number 4, we have Zinogre Longsword, which is the coolest and again in the top 3 Thunder Longswords. Corinne's the strongest, but yeah, actually I don't even know if there's a Corinne Longsword. Correct me if there is, but it doesn't glow like a lightsaber like the Despot's Boltbreaker does. Along with that, Spirit Gauge Boost is just too good. If someone with the longsword is using it, it's because you have Spirit Gauge Boost, and that's what makes it like S tier along with counter. Along with that, the reason why at number 4 you have the Rathalos light bowgun is because it's still a top fire light bowgun in the game, and back in the day, Rathalos was the best option. Still a really good option though, if you go after it. At number 3, we have the ever, of course, Bone gun lance. And the reason being is because in order to cheese monsters, all you need to get it to is grade 10.1. You don't actually need to max out. It's good if you don't actually want to try to get good, at least temporarily. For those of you that have moved on to better weapons, I applaud you. For those that stay into it, we don't applaud you at all. Please stay away from our Elder Dragon interception lobbies, please. And the thing about it is, at number 3, you have the Puke bow, which is still the best, again, early budget weapon for early/mid-game monsters. If you decide to invest in it, it's actually a good idea with the discount, and we might have bow style customizations coming out soon. And this brings us to the top 2. You have year 2 versus year 1 of the most upgraded grade 10. Number 2, Black Diablos bow. I keep talking about this, but just keeps showing up everywhere. Honestly, it's impressive how it only dropped to number 2 for year 2, considering we didn't have as many Black Diablos events as year 1, and it's still hard to get, don't get me wrong. You have to track this thing, or you have to find it, or again, we didn't have that many events. Zinogre Longsword is still really good and dropped to 4, but again, it's still impressive. Like, if you look at the pattern here, 3 of the 4 weapons are still on both years' listings, which is cool. At number 1, though, you have a newcomer, Joe Gun Lance for Artillery +1. It was a big reason for its top in year 2. You don't have to get this to 10.5. I wish they gave us to one that's most maxed out instead of just upgraded to grade 10, because obviously Bone Gun Lance and the Joe Gun Lance were going to be on here. But for what it's worth, it is incredibly impressive that at year 1, it only dropped 1 position. The Black Diablo skill solidified its GOAT status as still being the most upgraded to grade 10. It's in top 2 for year 1 and year 2, the only one to do it for both years on both respective listings. And this brings us to the most upgraded grade 10 year 2 versus year 1 summary. And at 1 for the second position, we have the Black Diablos bow. By far, by data-wise, the most powerful weapon in the game, and shown those who know have it. It's the meta. It's literally the meta. Outside of Chameleos, which in my opinion is stronger, but it's an Elder Dragon weapon. Black Diablos is accessible, and you can use it with the tracker. And here's the thing, if a longtime player doesn't have this maxed out and is trying to give you expert advice, they have little to zero credibility at this point, as it's been 2 years. This is the strongest weapon in the game overall. Taking all the nuances of difficulty, etc., this is amazing. So I like, at one point in time, there were three English content creators that had it. And sadly, 2 of them aren't very active in content creation anymore. The rest don't have it, so you shouldn't listen to them. Credibility is important when you have builds, etc. I can point out to my experience in Pokemon Go all I want. As fact of matter is, I have the most experience overall in AR games combined as far as English content creators. That's a fact. Meta is meta. If they don't have this, please don't listen to them. They have no idea what they're talking about. And literally, this was the first event. For those of you way back when you went after it, or if you did go after it, this was literally the first event. They were literally pointing to us, hey, this is good, go after it. If you don't have this, you don't suck, but you have a lot of work to do. Charged gun lances aren't surprised here though. The Joe gun lance is impressive due to its difficulty to obtain materials for it, but look out for custom gun lances to make their way into year 3. It's a lot of fun, but those are very powerful. And year 2 had a lot of thunder events, so it's not a surprise the Ogre Longsword and Light Bowgun made it onto this list. Literally, you see, it's still consistent. That weapon's incredibly powerful. Look out for thunder to make a huge impact to year 3 if they're still consistent. But a lot of y'all, including me, have Zinogre weapons maxed out. Now, you know, the weapons, here's the armor, the most used armor in year 2 versus year 1. At number 5 for the rankings, we have Azur Rathalos Helm versus Rathalos Coil. At number 4, you have the Basarios Mail versus the Kulu Yaku Helm. At number 3, you have the Koropuke Coil versus the Kulu Yaku Greaves. Number 2, the Rothian Vambraces versus the Gyrototus Gyrototus Greaves, not Vambraces. And at number 1, you have the Rejang Coil versus the Rothian Vambraces. That's what I meant to say. And this brings us to our analysis. Alright, so most year 2 versus year 1. At number 5, both years focused around focus builds. Number 5, you have the Azur Helm, which is still a primary focus piece for Helm because it gives you +2 focus for the helmet slot. And we didn't have much focus flexibility in year 1. But it's still impressive that it's still at number 5 as the Rathalos Coil is the most popular for the number 5 slot. It gives you focus +1 and fire attack, but at the time, it was the only, and we didn't have a lot of flexibility for focus at the time. At number 4, Basarios Mail was the only piece when it released that gave +2 artillery to support at the time. Now you have the, I believe, Basil Juice, one of the pieces gives you +2 artillery as well, but supporting the gun lance heavy usage at this time, that's why it's at number 4. Along with that, the Kulu Helm, not as good now, but it was a great beginner piece back then. You probably still use it for beginners, but outside of that, there are better pieces out there nowadays. And at number 3, the Koropuke Coil was a go-to piece and is still the go-to piece for reload speed / recoil down +1. At the time, we didn't have a lot. Now I believe we have Near Gigante and another piece, but I forgot what it was, that gives you reload speed and recoil down +1. And Kulu Yaku Greaves still work, but they're not great. They give you +2 crit, but they're better crit options now, especially with the rise of like the Carnival Mail and other things that give you +2 critical eye, along with another thing in Monster Hunter Now's current meta. Moving on to number 2, we have the Rothian Vambraces, one of the best melee pieces for burst +2 and lock on. And Jura Greaves for the first year were focus +2 leg slot. Back in the day, and they're still meta relevant now, there really wasn't much you had in the first year for focus. Jura Greaves were used almost all the time, especially for bow users. Well, that's probably wise because Black Diablo's bow plus those were the GOAT, and you still use them nowadays. And speaking of focus and bows, the Rejang Coil at number 1, +3 focus was just too dang good. Even though it doesn't have a Drift Melt slot, even then, +3 focus is amazing. And because of that, it is at number 1, and of course, that means you probably know why all the bows plus everything puts out for it. Plus, for gun lance users, if you use Charge Shot, focus +3 is actually really freaking good too. In addition, if you look at Rothian Vambraces, they were actually number 1 for armor of choice. They only dropped to number 2. So Rothian Vambraces, and it shows that most of everyone knows that burst, if you use the meta and you know what the meta is, burst is still really dang good. Having lock on plus here, and the fact that Rothian is still a very accessible monster, makes it number 1, at least for year 1. And this brings us to the most used armor year 2 versus year 1 summary. So bow is the strongest weapon type in the game for the second year. Focus is the main meta skill for top builds. Of course, you focus plus gun lances equals, well, charged gun lances equals cheese shot. And of course, focus was mainly used for, again, bows. That's why you see Black Diablo's bow here on 2 for 2 consecutive years being a top 2 weapon. And burst is still top raw despite critical frosty / raw power builds and other things that include raw. Here's the data right here. All the hunters know, and the expert hunters knows, as much as people try to go around it, burst is still really dang good. And bowguns are making their way up with the most used weapons with the coil's appearance. So with Puke Coil, Koropuke Coil to be exact, you already know those reload speed recoil down. And number 3 is really impressive considering that last year bowguns weren't even in existence, but now bowguns are now looking to be really dang good. And this brings us to the most challenging monsters year 2 versus year 1 rankings and analysis. Not gonna do a breakdown on these. It's the monsters that have carded you the most, and me as well. At number 5, we have the Pickle versus the Wife, and I mean wife because Black Diablos is female. It really pissed off one, and Joe Gunlance was highly sought after, so no surprise for year 1. Also, Black Diablos, the fact that it's still on this list beside the rest of these being Elder Dragons is incredibly impressive. At number 4, Nier Gigante is the strongest dragon type and an Elder. Black Diablos for year 1 wasn't surprising for year 4. Not year 4. At number 4 for year 1 because of the many Black Diablos events. It's the only subspecies on this list, and again, she's there to take your soul, so no surprise there. Along with that, she has the most powerful weapon in the game. At number 3, it's impressive that Kushala is still being hunted after so much. For year 2, I was the first Elder Dragon ever released. You're gonna see him later, but the fact of the matter is, like I mentioned before, it is still on this list. Other than the fact that a lot of ice meta has come out, everyone still wants the best ice meta in the game currently, and that's Kushala Daora. And next up, we have the top 2 nightmares of yours and mine's existence. Well, actually, not so much. I actually didn't go ham for Corinne, so number 2 was Corinne. I've killed 2 of them. Yeah, 2. That's it. Because I didn't really care. There's no super bow, okay? I get it. The Thunder bowgun was incredible, but I already had the Zenogre light bowgun, so I'm gonna go over to this one when I already have one. So its movement was insane. That's why it carded so many. And number 2 for year 1 was actually the OG Diablos. Well, that wasn't surprising because all of you had to go through the preseason story. And Diablos at one point was actually probably the most powerful monster before Black Diablos actually came out. And then all the boss mobs started coming out like Zenogre, etc. and Joe, so they started taking our souls. And at number 1, you have Teostra. This one's kind of a surprise for me. I thought Corinne would take it, but apparently everyone just got supernova to oblivion. Not surprising. That happened to me plenty of times. I didn't 10-5 Teostra either because I wasn't too into Blast. I was waiting. Yeah, it's a Blast Super Bow, but the supporting skill was Heroics at 2 levels was Garbanzo, okay? I did not care for it. And it wasn't a surprise for the number 1 for year 1 because Kushala was the only Elder Dragon at the time. However, again, like I mentioned before, it's kind of impressive that despite it being at number 1 for year 1, it ended up at number 3 for year 2. Which means a lot of people were still using healing items because Teostra's tornadoes were ripping them and their souls to oblivion. And last but not least, this isn't so important, but you know what? We might as well look at it anyways. We have layered armor year 2 versus year 1. So overall, if you look at the analysis, we went from schoolgirl look to more trendy casual look for layered armor. No, except for... If you look at number 4, the Cattail Furry Strike again. No, seriously, I don't... Okay, so first, Blacktail? Why do we go from Cat A to Cat B? I don't get it. Like, what's the difference? It's just a black tail versus a white... I don't understand. But you know what? You're not supposed to when it comes to this stuff. It's cosmetics. It's fashionscape. And the only 2 that actually make sense is the From Now headphones. This wasn't a surprise because you needed to wear them for the quest line, and it played the exclusive music from Ayase. It was a good little change of music if you listen to the music. I have sound off, so I actually don't listen to the music. For those of you that did, it's a pretty good song. And a lot of you obviously put the headphones on so you could rock them. And they look pretty cool, I'm not gonna lie. And at number 1, it's no surprise the Monster Hunter Wild shirt. Not at all. It came out during the promotion series. And of course, everyone's hyped, including me, for Monster Hunter Wild. So taking number 1 after a short amount of time, and some hunters are probably still wearing it, it is no surprise that the Wild shirt is number 1 for year 2. Hopefully you are looking forward to year 3 data. Maybe in the future they'll release more data like this because this is really useful to measure long-term meta and what the majority are investing in. Obviously we saw the summary. Black Diablos bows, light bowguns. Because the range is amazing, that's the meta, but also burst because of Rothian Van Braces and other things of that sort are incredibly powerful. And just how the Gunlance has made such an impact. Again, Joe Gunlance is okay. I don't care if, like, I'll take I'll million times take a Joe Gunlance on my team rather than a Bow Gunlancer because I know they can do some damage and they probably put in the effort because that's hard. Speaking of that, we know what the meta is here, and it's like someone told me, like, someone was trying to, like, put out something about Skyward Striker. Skyward Striker is crap, and unless the Insect Glaive comes out, it's not going to be great at all, and something else is probably going to be better in the long run. So yeah, don't listen to someone that doesn't have a lot of the meta weapons built out and hides all their stats or tries to pretend like they know it. If they're promoting Skyward Striker, please don't listen to them. It's such a terrible skill unless Insect Glaive comes out like I mentioned. Don't play with your Blast Gun Lances. There are better things out there. Please do me a huge favor. Like, subscribe, and comment for the YouTube algorithm. Hopefully y'all are excited for year 3. Good luck on your grinds, and I will see y'all on the next video.